Okay, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. First, we're going to have roll call.
Ms. Cooper Payton is excused. Ms. Hedlund?
Present.
Mr. Jacobson?
Here.
Ms. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Orcherton?
Here.
Mr. Patterson?
Here.
Ms. Salmon?
Here.
Ms. Snyder?
Here.
Okay. I don't believe we have any changes to the agenda. So next is approval of minutes of the previous meeting. Did anybody have any questions or comments about the minutes? Okay, I move that we approve them. Can I get a second? All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Let's go ahead with the first grant presentation then. We're going to hear from Jamie McGowan from Midwest Mandang.
And these are my colleagues. I'm joined by my colleagues Mara Thacker and Susan Ogwal, who both helped produce Midwest Manding with me this year as well as the last 3 years. And so I invite you guys to chime in if you have things to add. Mara just got back from India.
Oh, wow.
Susan's finishing finals, so, I'm sort of taking responsibility here. But I wanted to walk through a presentation here and just get you up to date on where we're at. So Midwest Manding, this is the third year we've had the African Drum and Dance Festival here in Champaign-Urbana, based in Urbana specifically. Our vision really came about through the offering of this grant opportunity, and really it unfolded around the fact that there was this funding available, and we wanted to see what we could do. We have a planning team, the three of us primarily. We have frequent meetings, many online chats, hundreds of emails and phone calls amongst us. But I think we form a really good team and work really well together, and couldn't ask for a better team. And this year we really worked to draw in new partners to support our initiative as well. We had 7 world-renowned artists this year with excellent teaching skills, and we worked a lot with our local Urbana businesses, university, and civic entities to provide ideal venues for our event and to support the event as things had changed over the last years in terms of where we could host our event. We sought added support, particularly from Pizza M, that hosted one of our parties. The Urbana Free Library hosted one of our free events for children and families. And then the University of Illinois came in very strongly this year. Most notably, the Krannert Center hosted our event free of charge and with tremendous support. We could not have done this without them. And so I want to really champion their support and how awesome they were. We also had tremendous support from the Center for Global Studies, the Department of Dance, the School of Music, the Robert E. Brown Center for World Music, and the University Library, which also hosted another one of our free events. But all of these really made this event possible this year, and we worked really hard to build those connections. We also had a lot of love from other Urbana businesses, and so I want to give a shout out to them, as well as other university entities, including the Center for African Studies at the university, Common Ground Food Co-op, the CU Folk and Roots Festival, H2O Salon and Spa, Krannert Art Museum, Maze, Manola's, and the Urbana Business Association. All of them supported our program, buying ad space, and just enabled us to have a little bit extra funds to support our initiative. And we gave them advertising space on our website, on our T-shirts, and on our website, program, and T-shirts, excuse me. And I'll pass this around.
And we could also verbally, we sent a lot of our participants over to the restaurants that supported us in particular, and we asked them to mention that they were over there as part of the festival. And given its proximity, I think Manolo's in particular will hopefully be sponsoring us again next year.
So we always try to share the love back with those who supported us. And then what I would say in terms of our process, we were involved in an awful lot of advertising. We developed a flyer this year. Instead of developing print postcards and more expensive PR. We developed a small flyer. We really relied on our website. We had a video online, and we really relied largely on Facebook and our email lists, which number in the hundreds. Several hundred on our email list. And then whenever I went to events, whenever Mara and Susan went to events, we'd wear our T-shirts as a promotional point.
And sorry, just to mention on the T-shirts again, I couldn't help but notice this year at the event how many people were wearing the T-shirts from the previous years, and we sold out of our T-shirts this year to the point where we ended up doing a second order for people who wanted them, and sent them after the event. So we've really gotten good at being tuned into what our audience would like in terms of like very Afrocentric textiles and bright patterns, and then we've really built a community. The same people return. At this point, we see everyone, oh, so nice to see you since last year, and so it's really snowballing, and it's nice. And I do think T-shirts, it's funny, but I think they're a part of that because it becomes a thing that people bring with them every year.
Here's our website. Sorry, this got cut off. I wasn't able to grab the whole thing and get it profiled, but this is part of our website, which Mara designed and has the basics. Our Facebook page, and as I mentioned, we have over 200 subscribers to our Facebook page alone. We have a YouTube video promoting the conference. And then I wanted to just share some photos from the conference. This year, more than ever before, although we've always had strong support with children and families, we had a lot more children this year. We had entire dance troupes coming from East St. Louis and St. Louis of children. They have free access to our festival and can attend everything they want. We also give free access to senior citizens, and we had really strong support there. It's a space where friends reunite, as you can see, and we have just tremendous energy. It's an event where people smile endlessly, and I tried to capture a few of those events. They're extremely pleased with the opportunity, and I just wanted to capture a little bit of the diversity and the breadth. At the top, you see a group. This is just part of the St. Louis group at the very top who attended. We had attendance from across many states this year again, and it's just so rewarding to see that. This is some of our drum workshops. We had in total 16 workshops, 8 dance, 8 drum workshops. We had an African marketplace led by our own Susan Ogwal, who brought in tremendous local support from small-scale business people. I will say that I believe over 90% of them were women and African descent as well, which is also a nice thing to see. We also had our performances at the library. This year we expanded. We had a performance at the Urbana Free Library. The crowd was overflowing. And for the first time, we also offered a performance at the University Library, giving students access to this event. And I think Mara said that there were over 50 people at that as well, and an overflowing crowd. So we really changed the dynamics of the library, bringing in African dance and drumming. It's not just a quiet space to work. As I reported in our follow-up, we had over 275 attendees in total. That's just a minimal estimate. We had the concert for families at the Urbana Free Library, a concert for students at the U of I Library, 18 drum and dance workshops, as I mentioned. 16. Sorry, that's a typo there. We had attendees from Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Michigan, Missouri, Virginia, and Wisconsin. We had a party at Pizza M with a strong attendance there. As I said, we had 11 vendors this year, and I think 90% of them or more were women and African American women at that. We had 16 business, university, and organizations sponsoring our event, and our budget estimate is over $25,000 leveraged by your $3,000 grant. We did an evaluation this year, and I included that in our report. This shows what folks said about whether or not they'd recommend our event, and 96% said by surely they would. We only had one detractor who didn't like the artists who we brought, but everybody else was fully in support, and so we thought that was a really nice showing of their enthusiasm. We had, and you'll see in our annual report as well, just other comments about the event, and so I encourage you to have a look at that. And I just want to give a shout out and thanks to the city. We really would not be able to do this without your support. It's just foundational. It's what galvanized us to begin with, and it's really made this an event of great success. And you know, we look forward to it every year. It brings smiles on hundreds of people's faces, and incredible space and opportunity to bring a diverse group of people together to have an artistic experience, and thank you. I'll give time and space for my colleagues to chime in if they want to, but I think we also have questions for you, and that's really, what are your recommendations for us? What can we do to continue garnering your support and making this a success?
Well, first of all, I just want to say it sounds like you've done a great job of expanding it and getting more diverse support, which is great. And I'm also very pleased that you have it free for both seniors and children. I think that's great. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Go ahead.
So I have a particular perspective because I'm the city council representative on this committee. So in that context, I really want to thank you for laying out so clearly how much other financial support you received, because we're forever being subjected to, or I'm forever being subjected to, drive-by comments like, we don't have enough police, so why are we spending money on the arts? So those are, see, I'm in a public meeting. Well, they're misguided, but they have to be responded to. So I think the fact that you have laid out so clearly that, you know, our investment has helped to catalyze a lot of other people's investment, that's very important. The other thing that you've said would be great to have some quantitation on this is how many people visited this city, how many people came to this city to take part in this. Because bottom line, they all spent money, and you know, I'm the sort of the I don't know, sour note in this symphony up here, because I always have to keep thinking about that, so that when it comes time for the city budget, I can make the right arguments for these efforts. So I thank you for you know, for how clearly you've laid out the budget. And the only other thing I would say is if you can put numbers on visitors from out of town, that would also be very helpful.
I would say that one of the things that we're actually really proud of this year is that we had more local attendees. Yeah. But I would say that easily 80% come from outside of Champaign-Urbana. We have a very strong showing from St. Louis, Chicago, Michigan, Iowa, Indiana. I mean, it's not just one or two people from those communities, it's 10 or more.
Yeah, and I would have to say that's one of the, I mean, I enjoy that balance. I think it's really impressive. You know, a lot of times when people come here, they tell you, oh, this town is great because St. Louis and Chicago and Indianapolis are accessible. Here's people coming from these large metropolitan areas to our town. Right. They're staying in hotels. They're spending money at the grocery store, they're going to restaurants, they're buying drinks, and they know Champaign-Urbana now, and they look forward to this every year, and every year we get somebody new who says, oh, I didn't know about this last year, but now I'm going to tell my community. We had somebody new, where were they, the guy who brought the drums, I think from Indiana, who is, this was his first year coming. He participated in the marketplace, and now they've already marked their calendars for next year. So to me, it's really meaningful to bring some of these big city people into our little town to really celebrate with us, because now we're a destination.
And I would also say that this particular year, we were competing with a football game on campus. So imagine that despite the fact that we could have had a much smaller crowd, we were actually we had a lot of people coming through Krannert, even in the particular placement that we were in. So through the hallways in our marketplace, and even just coming to spectate and be a participant on the side on that aspect. So we're growing, even though it may not kind of look like it at this point, but I think that Urbana is making its mark in that aspect as well. So
I think another thing that this committee could champion too is just the diversity of our event. And we have, I don't know what the numbers are because we don't collect that kind of demographic information, but it is a very diverse group. And I don't just mean African American and white. I mean there's Latino and Asian Americans and young and old. And, you know, my next door neighbor came to spectate. She's 80. You know, she was invigorated by this. You know, it's a very diverse group of people who come, and it just sort of changes your perspective on the arts and who it's for. It's empowering.
Yeah.
So the other part of this, again, which I'll translate sort of to bottom line, it's very important to the university, which is our economic engine of our community, to be able to attract graduate students, postdocs, other people from other countries. And the more that we make this community a place where people from all over are comfortable and really find it interesting, the stronger we're going to be economically in terms of these people coming and helping us get grants from federal agencies and foundations and companies and so forth, and keep the economic engine running. So I think you're doing, you know, I don't know how many of the people who attended your events were international staff or students from the university. I suspect a significant number. And you enhance this community for that group, and that's very, very important to it's very important to the city's livability, quality of life, but also very important to our economy. So thank you.
Well, and related to the international community, one thing that we've done is we found that a lot of international students are looking for work opportunities or volunteer opportunities. Some of these things can be expensive depending on exchange rates. So a lot of our volunteer staff are actually comprised of international students that I just happened to meet through my job on the university. The other thing I wanted to add is one thing that we've been doing in the organizational team. We recently Jamie met somebody through a different dance camp who has a organization, a nonprofit that helps people vision next steps for the nonprofit. So Jamie and I have been really taking an effort and pulling Susan in on this to vision how we want this organization and this event to grow from a financial standpoint, but also from sort of a more mission-driven standpoint. And so we have a lot of hopes and dreams and objectives for the next coming years, not to just sustain what we've done, but to build on it. And there are some practical steps. You know, we're hoping to apply for 503C. I always mess that up.
501c3.
That one. Oh boy, I'm glad this is being recorded. Anyway, we're hoping that's one of our next steps, and revitalizing the website and continuing to reach out to new communities. So we have a lot of plans for both financial and, you know, keeping the passion going kind of goals over the coming years.
That's great. Well, thanks so much.
And I'll also add real quick, I'm sorry, that as part of our African Student Organization on campus and also working together with Center for African Studies, we were able to do a lot more marketing, and quite a few of our students on campus also attended the workshops as well. So I do want to make that point that we are reaching within that graduate student participation as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Could I make one comment, Pat?
Oh,
Sorry.
oh yeah, go ahead.
I think what you're doing is clearly adding a lot of value. Our public arts program is housed in our economic development division as well. I'm the economic development manager. So something I try to emphasize is that artists are businesses and entrepreneurs too. And my question was going to be about your future plans, so I was really glad to hear that you're making plans to go through a strategy process. But I want to remind you that the Economic Development Division is here as a resource, and we can put you in touch with other business development resources in the community. So as you look at that side of your event, please feel free to reach out. And actually, 2 of my staff are in the back of the room if you want to say hi on the way out. So thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Oh, Barb?
Can I add something to
Yeah,
that?
go ahead.
In line with the economic development, I work in the arts too, and I know from producing concerts and theatrical events that in any given event you have about 35 businesses that are involved in putting on any production. So anytime that question comes up, the arts make things happen. It's just sometimes people forget what might go on behind the scenes, and so congratulations to you for all you've done.
Thank you. Thanks for your support.
Thank you. Yeah, sure, that's fine. Okay, our next grant presentation is going to be from Linda Tamman from the Youth Literature Festival.
The Urbana Arts Council program sponsored an author at our Youth Literature Festival. We bring in authors from around the country, but they sponsored one specific author, Duncan Tunatiu, who won the Cybert Medal this year for the very best work in children's literature and in nonfiction. And he's also won that honor before. He grew up in the United States, but he has dual citizenship in Mexico and went to art school in New York. And while he was here, then the grant we received from you made it possible for him to do presentations at Lille in English and Spanish, and Preston Williams as well. And then that evening he presented a family night at Preston Williams. We were able to get free food donated by McDonald's, and so all in all, during that day, he presented to about 1,000 people, over 1,000 people. And I brought a film clip that I think probably sums it up better than I can. It's kind of a film clip about the entire festival, but it focuses primarily on him. And Dan Ketting is in there. You may know him. He's a local storyteller, lives in Urbana. And Violet Harris. We don't have it completed yet because we don't have the little names at the bottom, so I'll tell you who's in it before I show it. But you have Dan Ketting, our local storyteller, who was our ambassador author for the festival this year. Violet Harris, who's a professor emeritus at the College of Education, and Mary Calancis, the former dean. And then some of the authors. And as you watch the video, I'll point out a few authors because there's just a few stories I'd like to tell about them when we finish. So now, how do I run this? I do it, just hit, I'll let you get it started. Down. Oh, log in. He downloaded it.
I think you just have to hit the
Oh, yeah.
button.
Okay, here we go. All right.
I think that reading inspires children to see the world differently. And artists see the world differently. Storytellers look at the world in a different way than an author would, or that a painter would. So by reading about painters, by reading about authors, by reading about storytellers, actors, actresses, the whole gamut of arts, by reading this, these kids get a glimpse into another world, and they can pick and choose and say, I kind of like this world. I kind of like what I'm seeing.
During the Youth Literature Festival, we gather together these famous authors from around the country, award-winning authors, and then we give the children of our community, of our extended community, a chance to meet them and interact with them in a meaningful way and be inspired by the work they do. And our outreach covers 7 counties, 19 school districts, over 90 schools, about 20,000 kids.
So a typical
This is
author
Sharon
visit
Flake here.
is usually about 3 months of
That's the
planning
librarian at
before the
Leo.
author actually comes to our school. And so during that time, I'm really introducing the students to the books and their work. So we do a lot of like read alouds and a lot of exploring like the author's websites and learning about them. On the day of the visit, it's very exciting. The author will come to our school, and depending on what they're most comfortable with, they can decide to work with a couple classes or even like the entire school, like have a school-wide assembly. So that time is really their time to interact with the students and really like show their books off and their process and their experiences.
Every morning, I ride my bicicleta to school. I ride at Paz de Perros and Paz a Nopal. What's a bicicleta? And what are perros? What's a nopal? I mean, I think children are extremely intelligent, so I just sort of tell them a little bit about my process, what I do, how long it takes me to create a book, how I go about it. I show them a little bit. I usually make a drawing for them and show them how I create the artwork. I do this kind of digital collage in the computer, so they like seeing that. But more than anything, I just share some of the stories with them and let them ask questions and just tell them a little bit about my process.
I think it's important for kids to meet the people who are creative. When we put divides between the artists and their communities,
That's Eugene
I think
Yelchin.
we're lessening the
Talking
art
about
form.
slave lip,
I think we're endangering the art form. I think it's really important for the kids to meet the artists, meet the authors, meet the storytellers, meet the puppeteers, because that way these children all of a sudden see it's real people doing it. And then they start thinking, I could do that. And that's where the next generation of artists is going to come from.
It isn't just about the university or just about the community. It is a partnership, a very strong partnership. You cannot be an elite university and not have direct value and direct connection with your local community. So that makes it unique, and it does attract very high quality people to us. The other part is that our teachers prepare for the authors before the authors come. So our schools are encouraging children to borrow books. They're encouraging children to write and to emulate what they read in preparation for the authors. And then when the authors arrive, it's like magic. And we all know, if you're a reader, you're more likely to succeed in your aspirations. So to be able to spark the love of reading is what the Youth Literature Festival is about.
We are introducing youth of all ages and adults, which I think is quite important to this wonderful area of literature for youth. On the one hand, you have extraordinary picture books, and we often think of picture books as only being suitable for young kids, but picture books are suitable for all ages, and they're, I argue, quite important for the continuation of an interest in the visual arts. Some of the most extraordinary art and photography will be found in children's picture books, but because books are expensive, we see this as a way of bridging the economic barriers that literature inadvertently may create.
We managed to get free books to all 90 schools before the authors came. And a lot of the comments from the schools and from the authors are in appreciation for the fact that so many kids had read their books. Because it's surprising. Publishers would say, oh, how about 48 copies of this? I'd say, yeah, that's great. It was surprising how generous they were and how willing they were to share when they heard about the program. And also when we told them about the number of schools we have who have a large population of low-income students. So this is a really important outreach to these schools.
And the Mendez family and the other families were very happy. The news appeared on local newspapers, but they didn't have much time to celebrate because the school board, the people in charge of all the schools in that area, appealed the case. And so what that meant is that a judge with more power, they asked him to review the case, and then they wanted him to change the decision.
Teachers always look for ways to supplement what they're doing. Commonly, teachers will bring in guest lecturers or somebody to share a personal experience or to tell a story. To have somebody knock on their door, so to speak, and to say, oh, we have these people who are going to be in town for 3 days, and would you like to have them come to your classroom free? teachers would jump at that. So it really makes all the difference in the world in terms of what that does for the classroom teacher.
There's no greater gift that we can give anyone, whether it's a child or an adult, than the gift of possibilities. And reading is one of the great ways for them to understand possibilities.
Dan Ketting, that storyteller. I gave speeches to...
I think that reading inspires...
Oh yeah, it's over, I think. Do I stop it now? Yeah. I gave speeches to Lions clubs, Rotary clubs, exchange clubs, Altrusa, not just in Champaign-Urbana, but Danville, Gibson City, Paxton, Mattoon, to all these schools that we go to. And he came with me for most of them for free. And I'm not a great public speaker by any means, but this guy, he would tell him a dog story and people would be in tears, you know. They were giving him free $50 lottery tickets. And I'm like, that story's not that good. Anyway, but Leal, of course, and Preston Williams are the two schools that have the full inclusion Spanish-speaking program, you know, so they're full immersion, rather. So that's why we focused on those two schools. And so the grant made it possible for us to just have him focus on those schools in that community. So then a lot of those kids came back that evening, and then he did a separate presentation that evening for him. It's hard to talk just about Duncan without talking about the whole festival. Sharon Flake, that we pointed out in the video, went to Rantoul, and she does very high-powered presentations and only wanted to do 2 presentations a day, whereas Duncan said, I'll do as many as you can squeeze in a day, which I thought was wonderful. But anyway, Rantoul contacted her and they said, listen, we have 90% low income. Would you consider doing 3 so we can get all the kids in? And she said, oh, okay. And she said after the second one, she's written wonderful books, but one of the books specifically is about a boy in a wheelchair who's a very good student and a girl who has a severe learning disability. And she likes him but thinks he's not interested because she struggles in class so much. And he likes her but thinks she's not interested because he's in a wheelchair. But then at the end, they get together, of course. Well, so... that's just one of several books that she's wonderful books, and she's internationally famous. Anyway, after her presentation, she said she was so tired, and she's walking around Rantoul just to go to a 20-minute break, and she's walking outside, and she's thinking. She said, honestly, she was saying, "Dear God, give me the energy to do one more presentation, please, because I am just wiped out." 'Cause she was doing a teacher in service that night as well. And she said she walked in, and all the kids in the front row were special needs kids, and a boy in a wheelchair grabbed her arm and said, "Thank you for writing that book for me." And she goes, "Okay, God, I'm good. I'm ready." So, and we had a lot of, and Eugene Yelchin that was on the tape, he grew up in the Soviet Union in a group apartment, you know, where people told on each other, and then did a lot of famous artwork for stage sets there. And of course, then when he immigrated in the United States, they took his name off everything. But he really was able to share with the kids about what it was like to grow up in that kind of society. And Greg Neary, he was on here just a minute. He has books that really connect with troubled kids. His book Yummy is a true story about a young boy who grows up in Chicago, and it's a graphic novel, so it's very approachable for kids, even kids who struggle with reading. And he just makes all the wrong choices, and eventually his gang actually lets the police kill him. And it's true. It's a true story. And we send him to the Champaign Juvenile Detention Center. He goes clear up to Anarga, to the special school up there for kids that come. They can bring them down mostly from Chicago area. He goes to other schools too, but he really connects with those kids. And the kids at the Ready program, the alternative school, the teacher says, "Oh my gosh, that book Yummy, it's stolen from our classrooms more than any other book," which is high praise indeed. But anyway, we just have a lot of stories like that. And like I said, Duncan was a treasure, and anybody he said, "I'll talk till my voice runs out." So he did presentations all day long, and just we were very pleased with it. And we had it's not really something where we bring a lot of people into the Urbana community, except the authors who, as I said, are nationally famous authors. And I was telling Barbara before, we had 15 pages from the 24 authors. We had 15 pages of emails, all positive. And Sharon Flake, who I said is incredibly famous, said it's the best conference she has ever gone to. And Greg Neary says the same thing. He said, every time you do this, please let me know, and I'll bring other authors in too. So everything worked out. It was all successful. We didn't have any major mishaps, and the responses from the kids. I go to these communities in the surrounding areas and just knock on business doors and tell them about the festival and hope once in a while somebody will cut me a check, which they do from time to time. Anyway, I was talking to a bank president, Paxton, and he gave me $1,000, which was lovely. And then he said, you know, this is such a good program. He said, why aren't you letting the publishers know about this? He said, when they hear about this, I think you can get free books. Well, that was the best idea ever, because this is our 5th year and we have never done that before. I didn't realize that authors often publish each book with a different publisher. So there were 130 letters to write, but we had almost $20,000 worth of free books. And so everybody had those books in their schools, because schools just now, especially now, just don't have the budget to buy extra books. So the books were in the schools and in the students' hands months before the author came. So. May I answer any questions?
That's great. Well, I'm particularly happy to hear that this does make our community seem like it's really welcoming to people of a pretty high level artists.
And we had
we
had Tim Tingle, who's the official storyteller of the Choctaw Nation. We had Asma Mobeen Udine, who did a special presentation, Family Night at the Mosque, who's written books specifically about, My Name is Balil, about a boy who has trouble. Well, his sister, someone tries to pull her headscarf off and he doesn't stand up for her. And he doesn't want anybody to know that he's Muslim. And then at the end, he meets a teacher who's also Muslim and finds some pride in his faith. So she did special presentations in the evening. We had Nnedi Okorafor, who writes a lot about her parents came from Nigeria, and then she did a special presentation at the African Culture Center. And so we tried to bring, and we had several Spanish-speaking authors as well. So we tried to, and then also Crystal Chan, you know, who's, let's see, what is Crystal? Crystal, her father is from China, but I think her mother is maybe Jamaican, or I don't know. But she grew up in a small town in Wisconsin, and actually she said when she was a kid, had somebody cross the street and come up to her and say, "What are you anyway?" So she kind of addresses the whole diversity thing with the students when she goes. So we tried to make it so it was able to connect with all the students.
Great. Anybody have any comments?
Well, I do, because I was there.
Well, she came to the community day then on Saturday, and she did a wonderful presentation.
Thank you. I was pleased to be a part of it and help enhance your program. I was very impressed. I was at the opening night reception, and I was at the festival and watched and how well organized it was, and the energy and the families. It was nonstop. Parents were bringing their children all day long, and it was just the activity level and the excitement. You could feel it. It was just so obvious. And I know that a lot of the credit to that festival goes to you.
Oh, thank you.
Because I know you.
It's just so nice to see. Like to see a grandpa come up to an author and say, "I have a little granddaughter who's in 1st grade and she's struggling to read, and I know she doesn't want you to know that she's struggling to read, but she really likes your book, and could you please put something in here that lets you know that she needs to keep trying?" And she put something about reading. As you learn to read, you'll be surrounded by your grandpa's love or something. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just so perfect. Anyway, so there's just a lot of things that happen like that.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
Anyway, anything else I can?
Yeah. No, I'd just add that I think this is great. I think our society is inundated so much with stories that are designed to manipulate us. And I'm really
That's so the truth.
happy that, you know, to see and hear and know about stories that have a different purpose.
That's very true. Thank you.
Very much.
All right, thank you very much.
I just have.
And I guess this is all recorded. You don't have to tell Dan I was complaining about how much they liked him whenever we spoke. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
The monthly progress report.
Hi, everyone. So, there it is. Hi. So, I'll start with Artists of the Corridor. These were just up today, so you're among the first ones to see the show. This is by Lori Fuller, who's a local painter, and she also draws with color pencils, but she does these beautiful landscapes, and she installed the library as well today, so they'll be up until March 3rd. And tomorrow night, we will have an opening reception. So if you can make it, please stop by. 5 p.m. to about 6:30 or 7 p.m. There will be refreshments, and you can meet the artists, and it's going to be fun. Lori is actually also featured in Art Now this month, so it's kind of perfect timing. Just our featured artist of the month. So this episode is now up on YouTube as well. And next month's episode will feature the Public Art League. We interviewed Eric Robeson, who's a board member at the Public Art League, but also we interviewed Jeannie, who was on the Public Arts Commission. But she's also a big supporter of local sculptures, and her generosity made it possible for us to purchase a sculpture at the library, Stranger Reduction Zone. We also interviewed a local sculptor who was featured, whose sculpture was sponsored through PAL this year. Michael Collins. He made Beacon, the sculpture that's outside of Black Dock in Champaign, is the one that lights up at night. So that's next month. So we're done with the installation of the sculpture project, and now we're developing some marketing materials, which I will talk about a little bit later. And for marketing, we keep updating our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and now we have these 2 ads on Smile Politely. One is to encourage people to apply to the Urbana Public Arts program, and the other is to promote the Art Now episode. So we're also currently creating a new ad to promote Arts at the Corridor. And yeah, that's all. Just 3 ads very soon. Arts in the Schools is done for this cycle. The jury met a few weeks ago, and decided to fund $1,000 to Capoeira. I hope I'm saying it right. Capoeira Angola Center, Illinois. So the group will do capoeira workshops at local schools. They propose going to 6 schools in Urbana, but because they were only partially funded, they will not be able to reach all the schools, but just a smaller number, maybe 2 or 3. And we also funded $2,000 to King School, which will continue their mural project with Glenn Davies. So last year, King School received partial funding, so they only did like half the mural, and this year they applied again and they were funded again. So the Urbana Arts Grant Program is still open and taking applications, so the deadline is February 6th, and the application guidelines and form have been published since November 3rd. I held 2 separate workshops, one at the University of Illinois and the other at the IMC. Maybe a total of 20 people attended, but I talked about the opportunity and also how to apply, and also just some basic grant writing tips. And I shared some examples from past recipients. So this year, again, we have $47,500 available from the city. But good news is we have a very generous local organization sponsor, or they pledge $500 to support a project. So the generous sponsor is the Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies, or CLACS, at the university. They were especially impressed by the last cycle, where we funded a photography workshop, but in Spanish. So the workshop explores themes of like identity and migration, and the grant recipient also reached out to the center, and the center heard about us from this grant recipient. And they're especially interested in supporting a grant recipient who, again, addresses issues of immigration, or reaches out to members of the community who speak Spanish. So total this year we have $48,000 available, thanks to their support. I promote the Arts Grants Program through a Smile Politely ad, and then in the e-newsletter, print materials, and also social media. We have boosted Facebook posts as well. And yeah, so please spread the word if you know anyone who would benefit from this grant program. It is competitive, but it's a great opportunity, and we're actually the only place locally that offers an art-specific grant program.
Okay, and then I guess we're going to start with the discussion of the Open Scene project.
So Open Scene, we have selected the youth and adult participants, and they met for the first time on December 3rd, where they had this launch event, and they got to meet one another and introduce themselves and learn more about what to expect from Open Scene. And then we also closed our call for artists. We had about 50 applications come in, which is really great. We only need to select 4 out of those 50. We're going to select 2 from nationwide and then 2 from Champaign County. And we have a great pool for that, so we're excited to make the selection. We're still organizing the applications, and hopefully around next week we can begin talking about how to select. And then the IMC is fundraising for their part of the match. So to move forward with this grant award, we have to provide like a cash match. So they had a fundraiser at the IMC on the 10th, which is a few days ago. And this is a picture from another event a few weeks ago, before the youth and adults were selected. So anyway, so after the artists are selected, in the spring we will have 4 different workshops. So they each take place on a whole weekend. So on Friday, the artists will come in and meet the community, and like they'll have like some discussions on what to expect the next day. And then on Saturday, they'll do the activities, discussion sessions, and they'll like learn a genre of art, for example, like maybe music or dance or theater or like painting or other things. We haven't decided that yet. And then on Sunday, they'll continue that and also have it open to the public, so they'll have some sort of showcase to show what they've been working on that weekend, which will be open to the public, and it's always free to attend. Are there any questions on Open Scene? Or comments or suggestions?
Anyone?
So, well, we got 50,000 of funding, and we need to provide either in kind or cash of 50,000. But with staff time and whatnot, the cash part is actually not that large. Do you remember the exact amount, Brandon? I know IMC is responsible for 5,000,
and the city's. I think we're contributing 15,000 towards this. That's already budgeted. We don't need to fundraise that.
Mm-hmm.
And then in-kind staff support. So one thing that happened is, and this was actually perhaps our biggest mistake as the grant writers, was that it was a $50,000 grant, and we wanted to do more. So we went a little higher. I think we went to 65,000, and that was our request. So we built the program around the $65,000 mark, and when it was awarded, it turns out they will only award, I think, at those intervals. So, we heard that there had been enthusiastic support for this application, and that if we'd actually asked for more, we likely would have actually been able to achieve a higher level of grant.
Yeah, I think it's like 50, 75, 100, and then nothing in between.
Yeah. So, I mean, it would have meant we had to come up with more local match, too, so there's a potential drawback, but the city didn't diminish its support as a result. So our total in-kind match and cash and in-kind match between the city and IMC, should be pretty easy to achieve, given the budget we started out with.
Oh, go ahead.
So the workshops that you mentioned, those are just for the visiting artists and the participants, or are those public, or some mixture of those two?
A mixture. So typically on Saturday, it's just for the selected project participants, and then on Sunday, it's going to be open for the public.
Anyone else have questions?
We had a meeting with the IMC staff earlier today, and everyone said that they keep getting really good feedback on the logo. So thank you, Jessica, for giving us your time.
Thank you. All right. Okay, I guess next we'll move to the Boneyard Springs celebration.
I received this proposal from a local organization. Their name is City Space, and City Space was founded maybe about a year or two ago, but they consist mostly of graduate students, I think, in urban planning, and they've worked with the city of Champaign and I think also the university in creating these art installations, I guess you would call it. But with the city of Champaign, they did this pop-up. I think it's a photography pop-up at an empty storefront. So they reached out to us and see how we could collaborate, and we thought that this would be a good opportunity to work with them, the Boneyard, our annual Boneyard Spring event at Boneyard Creek Crossing. So I asked them to submit a proposal, and they did a few days ago. And if you haven't had a chance to read it, or if you didn't receive it in your packet, please let me know and I can send it to you. But I have this video, which I think can sum up what they're thinking about. So there's this project that's gone global. So this has taken place in several countries all over the world. It's called the Unity Project, and they actually encourage people from all communities to participate in this big project, and they would send you like a guidebook, a manual on how to execute one. So Brian from City Space would like to organize a Unity project in Champaign-Urbana at Boneyard, and hopefully this takes you to the video. I think the sound was kind of quiet earlier, but that's already
fixed. Unity consists of 32 poles arranged in a circle. Each of the poles has an identifier. And what people do is they take yarn from the center pole and they tie around each pole that they identify with.
I'm circling that my family's continent of origin is Europe. I live with a disability, a chronic illness. Science.
Part of the fun was them tripping over each other and bumping into each other and having their lines cross. You know, it went from a big question mark to a huge success. As the days went on, it filled in and it was so thick that you could barely see the sky when you looked up through the center pole. When you look at Unity from far away, it's this massive structure. But when you start to go in to underneath the canopy, you can see each individual string. And when you can dissect Unity down to that single string, you realize that you're looking at a person. The poles they've chosen are their identity. And then you back up a little bit and you start to see who a lot of people are. And when you back up even further, you start to see humanity. And you see that even though we all have different experiences and we all identify in different ways and think in different ways, we are really one. You know, I'm just a person in the neighborhood, I'm just a mom, and I wanted to do something. If we can start from that place of common ground, we can have a much more productive conversation. I believe that as human beings, we have something in common with every other human being.
Any initial thoughts? So Brian's proposal includes a request of $1,000, which I think is quite economical. And then he was going to solicit local organizations and businesses to provide additional support so that the total project cost would be about $2,500. And this would take place in April 2017, so about 5 months from now.
I was curious when I read about this, where they were exactly proposing it in that area. I was trying to envision exactly the location where they would put the poles.
So the details are still up in the air. I think right now they're thinking the northwest corner of Race and Gray Street, so where the whale was.
Yeah, where Aethers used to be.
Yeah.
Where the whales were. Yeah, so Aethers is the title of the show. So
looked like a whale.
Yeah.
It was.
I told him that it would be nice to encourage to have the installation drive people to explore the parks a little bit more, because we see people hanging out where a thirst was, but sometimes they don't know that the park actually goes much further north than that. So if there's a way to incorporate other spots, that would be great too. But we will have to talk details about what's possible.
How long will the installation stay up?
About a week.
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
So how big was the structure that we were looking at? How far across?
I don't have it at the top of my head, but
See in the proposal?
it's not huge.
Maybe I was guessing maybe just by looking at the human scale, something like 40 or 50 feet across, but
Maybe.
is that about right?
I can check for the details, but that's possible.
And does it fit in the Boneyard Crossing Park? It needs a little bit of, level ground or something close to that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
I think the poles can also be a bit closer.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we hope to have a lot of participants, but I think this video was filmed in like Alexandria, Virginia, which is a larger community. So I think if we condense it to a smaller size, we also will the threats will be more dense, I guess.
And so the idea is that the project is up for, let's say, a week, and people can come and participate
Yes.
whenever.
Yes.
Okay.
But maybe we'll promote it especially during the Boneyard weekend. We can include it in the Boneyard marketing materials and encourage people to stop by on that day.
Is this something, though, that's going to work if it's raining?
Yes. Well, people will probably not show up if it rains. But I mean, if it's up the whole week, the structure won't be damaged by rain.
Well, that's what I'm worried about. I mean,
Yeah.
even if it rains later in the week, will it
If it,
fall over?
I don't think it will mess with the look of it, but I mean, if it rains all week, then there'll be like fewer participants,
Right.
I guess. So
Yeah.
hopefully not. Yeah, every year around April, all I do is check the weather.
Yeah. We remember what happened in 1999, in April of 1999.
What
Where
happened
Some of
then?
us, well, there was a tornado that
Oh,
came through
okay.
here.
It's sort of like a Christo installation with big knitting needles.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And this video, it's the threads pink, but there are some other examples where it's like all different colors and it just looks like a rainbow. So the details are still flexible.
Mhm.
I guess so the person who spoke on the video was, I guess, a member of the organization, not but
Mhm.
I'd really be curious. I'm intrigued by it. It would be great if it were possible to find testimonials from just. Well, here's a question: how many people actually participated in that in Alexandria?
I would have to look into that. It's really different by city. I'm sure some cities have a lot of participants, but other cities not so much.
If we were pretty confident that it would draw a large number of participants or a significant number of participants, it could be very cool.
Anybody else?
Does it say on this is this a website you're looking at now?
Yes.
Are there some other links that might answer Eric's questions?
Yes.
I don't know if you've had a chance to explore the website, but maybe some of those questions might be answered there.
Yes, so if you want to look around, it's unityproject.net is the website. So any other feedback? I think it could be a great thing. I mean, we've done the music performance and art workshop 2 years in a row, and they're successful. But with Boneyard, usually people come and go pretty quickly. So I think a lot of people don't stay for the whole performance. They would just move on to the next venue, which is not a terrible thing. But I think this is our third year, so maybe we'll try something new.
I don't know. Some of us stayed for the gamelan dances.
Oh. Yeah.
How will the identifiers get chosen?
He hasn't included that in the proposal, so we can have more conversations about that. Something that includes all groups and inclusive, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It would be fun, maybe, if it could be, if people would respond, to have some broad community participation in what the identifiers ought to be.
That could be a good idea too, yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at this and, I guess they're pretty broad. So there is one, I support gun control, and another one, I support gun rights. So, yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll pick the ones that are not too divisive and just more lighthearted and fun. But
well,
we can
see, that's an interesting question, and maybe the community ought to tell us about that, whether they want it to be light or whether they want it to be a chance to make a statement about something that they care about, even if not everybody agrees with them.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like a survey in a way.
Like a survey turned into a work of art.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Well, it sounds like you have a lot to. There's possibilities, and you need to find out more information, but certainly worth exploring.
Yeah.
Well,
so
just keep us posted as you go along.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, I will.
Okay, we'll go ahead with the Urbana Sculpture Project then.
Oops. So I started developing some marketing materials for the sculpture project. It's still in the works. So, oh no, okay. I guess the link doesn't work there. So I'll open the website. So as we discussed, I think a couple of meetings ago, we're just going to focus on a web-based guide. But also, I think a good idea would be to just produce smaller flyers or postcards with the link there, so people know where to look for a web-based guide. And this website is really handy. It's called Canva, and it allows you to use design templates. Sorry, let me log in. Sorry. Well, it's a work in progress anyway. So how about, this is a sign that it's not ready to be shown yet. So I will complete it some more and then send it to you in the next week or so. So basically, each page has one sculpture in it and the artist statement and then like an embedded map so you can see where it is. And hopefully we'll figure out a way to make it so that the map can be like dragged around and stuff, just like you can on Google Maps. So we're working on that. And recently I found out that the Urbana Park District is currently working on a very similar project. They're building a web-based guide for their sculptures at Meadowbrook. So I met with someone from the Park District to see how we maybe could join forces. Of course, a lot of planning would have to happen first before we do so, just so there's no confusion for the public on which sculptures are the parks and which are the cities. And also, when I talk to them, they're already kind of in the later stage of the project. So they created this website. It's also not in public knowledge yet, although they said I can share it with you at this meeting. But this is also a work in progress. This also looks much better on a mobile phone view. So if you have a chance, check out urbanaparkstour.org on your phone. It looks great. But it takes you to this page, and then you can select a tour. And right now they only have Meadowbrook, the sculpture garden. And you can choose if you want to learn about the sculptures there or the plants there. But we'll go with sculptures right now. And so if you open this on your phone, it'll track where you are. So it shows which sculptures are around you and where you are in the map. Again, they're still working on how this looks because it already looks good on the phone, but not so much on the desktop. And you can click a sculpture. Maybe it doesn't work yet. Oh. And it will have a message from the artist, and it will show you where it is on a map. And I told them maybe it'll be cool to mark the ones you've seen and mark the ones that are your favorite or something. But we talked about how we can work together with them in giving some more information about sculptures, especially the ones that we share, because there's one at Lille Park called Keep It Together. So this sculpture, we help coordinate. So this is a Public Art League sculpture, and Public Art League was trying to find a spot for it. So I guess we helped connect them with the Park District, and it happened. So it's installed at Lille. So like this, maybe we can include a new location in the website that says like Lille Park or something. We also have the King sculpture at King Park, which was commissioned by the Public Arts Program in the city of Urbana. So there could also have like there could be an option in the homepage to explore King Park. So I will send Dana from the parks information about those two sculptures to be included. So we'll see how it goes with those two first, and then there's possibility to include other sculptures in the future.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it seems to me, from the user's point of view, that it would be really good to have integrated into the app sculptures that are elsewhere in town that are not ours.
Yeah.
And I think this would, add value more than it would dilute our contribution. So, for example, include, unless there's already an app for it, but I don't know that there is, have our sculptures, but also guide people around Meadowbrook Park and the sculptures there. Because I think especially if we're thinking, it enhances the experience of living here, but also can really enhance the experience of visiting here.
Yeah.
And if it embraces all of the sculptures in town, I think that would really add value to it.
Yeah, I agree. I think this website would be, personally, I think it would be more successful the more people join in. We also, this was more like a brainstorming meeting, so we just have all these ideas. But we're thinking we could have like a homepage with maybe the park logo and then the city's logo, and then people can click which ones they want to see. And then if you click the city, then you'll see all the public art collections of the city.
Yeah, and when we found out that the Parks was doing it, we briefly entertained, well, what if we just teamed up and did it together? But they were already very far along. We had a slightly different approach we wanted to try. And I think the Public Art League is also interested in looking at how they can promote the sculptures throughout the community, actually online as well. But it just doesn't seem like it makes sense to really pull them all together right now. But I think long term, there's a great possibility for collaboration here, but probably having the 3 experiments and trying the same thing, we're going to find out what method sort of works best. But Public Art League might be a very logical group to sort of umbrella the end result, even if it's still just links to the other sites. So we were thinking down those lines, but we just sort of have these respective paths to follow now, and I'm curious to see what Pauline's going to come up with for our program.
Well, I think it has aspects for art education too, for public school teachers.
Yeah, for sure. When we printed brochures, the the most requests I get for the brochures was from our teachers who want to share with their students. So I expect this would make it easier for them to access in the classrooms.
Yeah.
As a function of that, one of the things that being a teacher would be the most useful is if, yes, there are 3 different ways of handling this information, links, that sort of thing. But one of the most useful things for us would be we need to be able to collate that information somehow so that we can say, listen, we've got a bus that goes to these 3 square blocks and we need to know everything that's within walking distance of that destination right there.
Sure.
And we don't want to have to go through lots of different sites to be able to find that out. We want that all in one spot.
Okay. That's good to know.
Wouldn't that work on the maps option, where if the separate websites can be clicked on, you could say all, or just these 2, or just within this area, just like you would any Google search application?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it would populate them from there.
And then if they want to branch out, they can expand it.
Yeah.
It's a plus and minus thing.
I will learn a lot from this process because at the moment I'm not sure how to do those things, but we will figure it out. Yeah, and I think it's good for us to develop our guide first and just focus on that and make it beautiful and very accessible. And later, if you want to join forces with the Park District, it's easy to just move the information to this website. Yeah, I like their GPS feature, though. I think that's really neat.
Good. Well, I think that's it. Okay. At this point, does anybody have any announcements they want to make?
I have an announcement.
Okay.
So next month is our January meeting, and Pat had this great idea that maybe we can get together after the meeting because we haven't done it in a while. So like something like Crane Alley maybe would be nice, and we can just hang out and have a good time. There.
So that's January 10th.
January 10th.
Hmm.
Yeah, we can head over after the meeting together or something.
Right.
If we don't have 10 feet of snow.
Yes. If not, we will reschedule.
Right. Okay, anything else?
I have one more.
Go for it.
So tonight is the installation celebration by PAL. So Public Art League every year throws this event to celebrate the new sculptures that arrive in town. It's at Biaggi's, and he told me that he emailed all of you. I hope you got it. If not, I should have double checked.
I did, yeah. And
Okay,
I answered.
great. Okay, so
actually, I think they sent it more than once. They sent a reminder, but the first one came out like when they're during Thanksgiving, and I think maybe some people might have
Sure.
potentially missed it.
Well, great. Yes,
Yeah.
I guess they're always on top of it, so I shouldn't be worried. But I'll be there after this, and then maybe I'll stay until like 7 p.m. or so. So maybe I'll see you there.
My husband is singing a Frank Sinatra song, Salute, tonight. I've got to be there.
Can't miss that.
I
Sorry. And lastly, just a reminder: tomorrow is the opening reception for Artists of the Corridor. So if you can, I'd love to see you there.
Okay, great. All right. I would move that we adjourn. Can I have a second?
Second.
She's not here to record that, but
You can let her know. Oh, that's true. She can watch the video and get it, whatever
Okay.
she missed. That's true.
All right. We are done. Thank you.
Stay warm,
Thank you.
everybody.